Oh, wow. Pura vida, mi gente. Hey, much love and respect. Seriously, much love and respect for tuning in once again. Appreciate you guys taking the time to do that, especially in these late lives. You know, kind of almost ran out of time today. I was so busy, and I was like, let me just go live so I don't have to record and then edit and have to wait to upload. So I'm gonna just go live. and just speak to you naturally and read. Let's read together. We're going to read another chapter of a great book. I haven't read it at all, so I don't know what's in it. I just saw the topics and it sounds very interesting. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I think I'm going to enjoy reading it. But again, much love and respect for being here. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. All right. So we got about 53 people. That's what it says here. So we're going to start anyways. It don't matter. Pura vida, mi gente. Wow, wow. Oh, sorry, I was muted. So we're going to get back into this book, History of America Before Columbus. I don't know if I already said that. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We're live. I don't know how long I was muted for. And we're going to read a great chapter here of this book. I haven't read it at all. I saw the topics, so we're going to get into it. Pretty excited. Thanks for tuning in. Again, History of America Before Columbus, according to documents and approved authors. By P. DeRue, member of the Archaeological Club of the Land of Van Ways and of the United States Catholic Historical Society, honorary member of the American Catholic Historical Society of Philadelphia. All right. So let me know if the music's ever too loud. It might be a little louder for people wearing headphones, so just let me know. I want to make sure you guys can hear me good. Okay. We're going to go to chapter 6 today of this book. Okay. And it says here, Ancient European Glimpses of America. Pythias of Marseilles had been raised on the Mediterranean Sea and knew the greater part of the eastern continent. After having sailed on the Atlantic Ocean. Actually, what am I doing, guys? I'm not even sharing this correctly. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Why didn't you guys tell me? Why didn't you guys tell me, huh? There we go. All right. So I hope you guys saw the title of the book. Again, The History of America Before Columbus, according to approved authors and documents. All right. From the late 1800s. So we're going to go to chapter 6 of this book. Okay. And it says here, Ancient European Glimpses of America. Pythias of Marseilles had been raised on the Mediterranean Sea and knew the greater part of the eastern continent. After having sailed on the Atlantic Ocean and the North Sea, probably as far as Iceland, he wrote a book with a significant title. And you guys see the title. I don't know Greek, so a lot of you could interpret it. Around the World. So, but a lot of you do know these authors and know their books, so you know what they're talking about. The Western continent was lost for him, as it seems to have been already for Aristoteles, and thought that the Carthaginian distant possessions lay on the eastern coast of Asia. The Arabian geographer Edrisi asserted also that the Sea of China, which watched the lands of Gog and Magog, was one with the Dark Sea or Atlantic Ocean. Pope Alexander VI, speaking of Gardar in Greenland, could not describe any better its location on the American hemisphere than by stating that it was situated in Fine Mundi, on the border of the globe. It was, in fact, as late as AD 1524 that through a letter of Giovanni Verrazzano, it became known in Europe again that the West Indies was no part of Asia, but a continent by itself. And I just want to add that in this same book by Giovanni Verrazzano, he wrote that the Eastern Indians on the eastern coast of North America were not much like an Ethiopian, that their complexion and their looks was just like an Ethiopian. Do you guys remember that? Verrazzano said that in 1524. Okay, just wanted to add that in there. So again, the West Indies was its own continent, guys. It's not Asia. Why did people think it was Asia? That's very important. And for a long time, it was known as Asia Major or India Superior. It was Asia. But now, hey, it's not the Asia we know, because they had already traveled and named, you know, what they call today Asia. So they're like, hey, this is a different thing. And what we're now calling Asia. The Native Americans are not Asian how you think today. All right. So that's your own hijacks. Let's not come. If you're new to my channel, you know, you're seeing it in reverse. America's the true old world. This is Asia Major. We went from here over there. Eratosthenes, following in the path of Aristoteles, believed in the absolute possibility of finding land on a westward course, but thought the distance too great for the voyagers of his time, namely the 2/3 of the world's circumference. In this opinion he found but little acceptance by his contemporaries, and Poseidonius reckoned that the width of the ocean intervening between the west coast of Spain and the east coast of China was nearly equal to that of the known world. MarinusTyrius fell into the opposite excess, again extending the breadth of the, and you guys see the Greek word, or inhabited earth to 15 hours, and leaving only 9 hours of the sun's course to be traversed by the westward voyager. He had wiped away the space occupied by our continent. He also did Lucius A. Seneca, who made light of the distance between the western coast of Europe and the eastern coast of Asia. All right, you're getting out of my channel now. They came from Africa, he said. Okay, so let's, guys, be ready to, like, moderators. If anybody keeps on with nonsense, we can politely tell them once, hey, correct them. If they continue, they're just trolling. Please hide them from my channel, especially if they're talking about out of Africa theories. If they're being polite and not mentioning anything, just time them out for 24 hours. We don't want them here today or at any time. Okay? Now I lost my place. I'm going to try not to look at the that chat too much. So pray, he asked, how far is it from the farthest shores of Spain westward to those of India? A very few days sail with a fair wind. Ptolemy reduced the extravagant area of the known world to the statement of Poseidonius, and his theory was accepted all through the Middle Ages. All these statements and references abundantly prove that for many centuries the learned men of Europe had hardly any idea of their antipodes or of the antipodal continent, which they had mercilessly drowned in the billows whose extent they were discussing. This should not, however, lead to the belief that all apprehension of our landed hemisphere and all former information relating to it had irreparably been lost. Some vague idea and positive doubt of it continued among the learned of Europe, even down to Columbus. Again, Columbus was never lost. He knew all this stuff. He read all these ancient accounts of ancient America. He met Indians in 1470s in Ireland. He knew so much about the Americas, which he was calling India. Diodorus of Sicily still writes, probably copying an older author, that the Phoenicians had discovered a large island in the Atlantic Ocean, beyond the Pillars of Hercules, several days' journey from the coast of Africa. Now remember, seen in reverse, what is a Phoenician? We're talking about a seafaring people, possibly a secret society of seafarers, which includes many nations, not a nation per se. You know, that word is like a misnomer. It includes a lot of Israelites too, so-called Phoenicians. So Phoenicians came out of the true Holy Land, the real Canaan, ancient America. I know this is hard for a lot of you Pan-Africans and out of Africa, Asia, Pan-Asians, but that's what we've proven in the last 8 years. Catch up. This island abounded in all manners of riches. So many sources here. The soil was exceedingly fertile, so fertile. We're just talking about Kemet, right? Rich, black, fertile soil. That's what Kemet means. The scenery diversified by rivers, mountains, and forests. It was the custom of the inhabitants to retire during the summer to magnificent country houses, listen, which stood in the midst of beautiful gardens. So, okay, so for people like Platoni, like, why are you asking me that, bro? You already know that. So, okay, most of my followers know that Columbus is a tag. Just want to answer Platoni here, and everybody's confused. Let's not interrupt like that again, man. Come on, because I know you're asking me. His real name is Salvador Fernandez Sarco. We've already proven that. He was a Portuguese Sephardic Jew. That was his franchise merchandise, his logo. That was his logo name. That was his brand, Cristoforo Columbus. All right. We're just using it for reference for people, okay? You want me to keep saying Sarco, Columbus, you know, it's silly. Come on, man. Just try to stay on topic. Thank you. Fish and game were found in great abundance. The climate was delightful, and the trees bore fruit in all seasons of the year. The so-called Phoenicians discovered this fortunate island by accident, being driven on its coast by contrary winds. So who wrote that? Who wrote that the Phoenicians by accident found America? He's just writing this. That's the author's opinion right here. Again, so-called Phoenicians came out of the true Holy Land, America. On their return, they gave glowing accounts of its beauty and fertility. The Tyrians, who were noted sailors, desired to colonize it, but the Senate of Carthage opposed their plans, either through jealousy and a wish to keep for themselves any commercial benefit that might be derived from it, or as Diodorus relates, because they wished to use it as a place of refuge in case of need. So the Carthaginians had to drop, and they kept it secret for many years to the rest of people in Europe. About the year 80 BC, Sertorius, being for a time driven from Spain by the forces of Sulla, fell in when on expedition to Baetica, and we've broken this. Baetica could possibly in America, with certain sailors who had just returned from the Atlantic islands, which they describe as two in number, distant 10,000 stadia from Africa, and enjoying a wonderful climate, right? Like the land Shem-God, right? Not too hot, not too cold, a little bit of both, wonderful climate. The account in Plutarch is quite consistent with a previous knowledge of the islands, even on the part of Sertorius. Be this as it may, the glowing praises of the eyewitnesses so impressed him that only the unwillingness of his followers prevented his taking refuge there. We may notice that great distance from Africa points to American territory. Again, they were just talking about the Americas. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining, anybody who just joined. Welcome. Thank you. Strabo, it is the next writer who alludes to our Western Hemisphere, saying, Eratosthenes sets forth lengthy arguments to persuade his readers that were it not for the width of the Atlantic Ocean, we might sail along the same parallel from Spain to India, across what is left of the world when we take Europe and Asia from it. Hmm. Moreover, we might find two and even more inhabited countries, particularly close to the circle that passes by China, or Nankin in China. In another place, he again intimates the existence of unknown lands between Western Europe and Eastern Asia. The Latin poet Horace evidently meant the Western Hemisphere by the unknown islands far away in the circling ocean. All right, all these people knew about America. He's just pointing this out to you guys in case you didn't know. All right, when he was talking about these unknown islands, he was talking about America. He told his countrymen they might take refuge in the Iron Age of the Roman Empire. Can go there. He describes them all full of riches, yielding spontaneous crops of cereals and wine, and made safe and secure by being almost unknown to the sailors of the time. Virgil, his contemporary, plainly intimates his vague knowledge of our distant shores when he expresses the Romans' proud ambition of extending their dominion beyond the limits of India and Africa to the very spot where Atlas, again, Atlas, all these people, the Titans, the kings of Atlantis in America, away in the Western Ocean, sustains the columns of the heavens. Everybody knows the prophecy of Seneca and his Medea. Nothing has remained in its old place in this pervious world. The Indian quaffs, the Yachartes, waters, and the Persians, those of the Elbe and of the Rhine. After many years, the time shall come that the ocean will loosen the bonds with which it confines the earth, and that the great continent will be thrown up open. Thetis will uncover new worlds, and Thule shall no longer be the farthest land. Thule, possibly Iceland or Greenland, that's where the so-called Vikings, so-called Scandinavian, even Irish Celts were trading, going back and forth, or originated from a lot of those people that became known as that. Remember all the books and all the information and research we've done about Great Ireland. Acosta and others considered the chorus of Seneca's Medea as a mere poetical fancy, but Payne thinks that it may be derived from the statements of Aristoteles and Strabo. R. H. Clarke supposes it to have been a divine inspiration, and we are of the opinion that the poet's prophecy likely rests on strictly historical information. So they try to write it off like, oh, he's just making stuff up because it was talking about the Americas. The Romans were at his time the masters of a large portion of Albion, so-called Romans, whose natives, especially those of modern Scotland, were undoubtedly acquainted with the Tartars of the northern islands, Iceland and Greenland, huh? And the northeastern coast of America. Who? The Tartars of who? Of where? Northeastern coast of America? Tartars, huh? Tartary, huh? No wonder, therefore, if it had come to Seneca's ears that such mysterious lands existed as those which he hoped his country would subjugate one day, as it had subjugated Persia and Germany. A few years later, the elder Pliny stated again the sphericity, of the earth and the relatively small extent of the Atlantic Ocean. Dodge the hijack with their spinning balls. He knew the fortunate or Madeira Islands and reported the belief of many of his contemporaries, namely, that beyond these islands there were yet to be found a number of others. Pomponius Mela had perhaps these latter in view when he spoke of his alter orbis or other world. All right. So even when Pomponius was talking about this alter orbis or the other world, he was talking about ancient America. So a lot of these places became myth or mythological lands. And I've been trying to tell you, all these mythological lands end up being major, for the major part, America. But they never told, they didn't want us to think that. They didn't want us to know that. They want us to think just myth. These are all myths. They just made it up. Horace thinks that they are the same distant islands mentioned by Apuleius in his book De Mundo, about the world, all right? Even Apuleius knew. The Dutch antiquarian calls our attention to a passage of an erudite Rhapsodist of the same epoch, Aelianus Claudius, who rehearses Theopompus' exciting description of the great continent, larger than Asia, Europe, and Libya together. All right, larger, just like Plato described so-called Atlantis, larger than Europe and Libya and Asia together, not a little small place in Mauritania. Okay, larger than that. Pay attention, just like Plato said. And the words of Marcellinus asserting that in the Atlantic Ocean there is an island of greater importance than Europe, all right, much greater than Europe, and to which the Canaries were subject. So you see the Canaries connected, the people of the Canary Islands, and we've read this in many books already, possibly connected to ancient America, so-called Atlanteans, you know, looking like the Indians as Columbus, so-called Columbus, Sarko, right? He's described when he got to the Bahamas, hey, they look like the Canarians, talking about the ancient ones. We should have stopped before this, our inquiry into European ancient knowledge of the American continent, where we too strictly followed the order of chronology. But we trust it may please our readers if guided by laws of logical thought. We still further continue to examine how much there was known in the old world of our Western Hemisphere. All right, so-called old world. This is the true old world. Even down to Columbus' discovery, Sarko. Christianity has always been not only the jealous guardian of divinely revealed truth, but also the preserver and promoter of all human science, thus the hijack with their religions. She has carefully saved what few faint notions she has inherited from paganism. Oh, so are you admitted that Christianity, you hear what he's saying, inherited things from paganism regarding our Western world? And in God's own good time, she has developed them into full and complete knowledge. So a lot of these authors in their time and everything, they were Christians. You know, they add that to their writings. Saint Clement of Alexandria, at the end of the 2nd century, and Saint Jerome, during the 4th, wrote of the worlds that lay beyond the ocean. Saint Jerome says, we seek with reason that the apostle means in these words when he says, you have walked for a while according to the course of this world, whether he would have us to understand that there is another world, which neither is nor depends on this world, totally disconnected from them, or other worlds, whereof Clement writes in his epistle, the ocean and the worlds which are beyond the ocean. All right, this mythical, mysterious land. It was always America they were talking about. Nor it is true that the other fathers of the church opposed and condemned the theory of the earth's sphericity and of antipodal countries. Edwin J. Payne answers well. Lactantius does not deny the sphericity of the earth. St. Augustine admits it as not improbable. What the fathers deny is the existence of human beings under another divine dispensation. Men of learning, whether ecclesiastics or not, believed in the spherical earth with its terra australis, and that's the Greek word, in the southern hemisphere. All right, when we talk about a southern continent, that's how they called it, australis. Australis just meant southern continent. It wasn't what we think of today as the continent of Australia only. They called Antarctica Australis, which was connected to South America with no ice. They got old maps showing that. The sole dispute was whether it had any inhabitants. Isidore of Seville in the 7th century held that It had not. Venerable Bede in the 8th century, that it had. So again, a lot of people saying, oh, that was uninhabited, a whole large continent, right? Big landmass. This beautiful place with so many resources is the oldest land out of the primordial waters, the oldest forest, oldest fossils where mammals come out of, and all this food, crops, minerals, sources. But it was uninhabited, right? You gotta dodge the hijack. In addition to these writers, we might mention Jordanes, Orosius, Diquil, and Moses of Chlorine. Not many today can illustrate the truth of the Earth's sphericity more clearly than the author of El Image du Monde, an anonymous poem of the 13th century. If two men, he says, were to start at the same time from a given point, and to go the one east, the other west, they would need meet at the place whence they set out, if not on the opposite hemisphere. For latter times, the treatise of John of Halifax, the Sacro Bosco, is enough to refute the singular error that the doctrine of the earth's sphericity was discredited during the Middle Ages and only revived after the exploit of Columbus. Macrobius, an author of St. Augustine's time, supposed a second northern and a second southern continent, maybe, or inhabited earth on the other side of the globe, roughly corresponding to North and South America, which may readily be considered as the fourth part of the world of Isidore of Seville, who also speaks of islands lying beyond the Atlantic shores, about the center of the waters. So, in classical times, and a lot of ancient documents, and people wrote about a fourth continent because they only thought there was three. They only showed Europe, Asia, and Africa, right? But a lot of them always wrote about the four continents, is what he's letting you know, or the fourth part of the world. Fourth part of the world. 1 century later, Alcuin and his disciple Rabban Maurus thought that there was a fourth quarter of the earth yet unseen by mortal eyes. This last remark would seem to prove that but little attention had been paid in continental Europe to the highly probable exploration and evangelization of America by the Irish monk St. Brendan and his companions in the 6th century. But the 6th century had not its newspapers to divulge important events all over the world, nor were the religious of that epoch of saints anxious to have their deeds known beyond the walls of their archival vaults. And it was only about the 11th century that the records of St. Brendan excited the pious mind of holy souls and of a few savants beyond the shores of the island of saints. Nor should we wonder if St. Brendan's exploits remained unnoticed so long when we consider that those of the Northmen were ignored by their literary southern neighbors until, we might say, this very century of ours. But whether the learned men of Europe paid attention to it or not, it is well settled and historical fact today that our continent was visited, settled, and evangelized at the close of the 10th century by the newly converted inhabitants of Iceland and Norway. And again, most likely, possibly seeing all that in reverse, like we were heading that way. Remember what we learned, guys, right? I'm gonna repeat it again, in case you guys forgot. If anybody was to cross the Atlantic Ocean, it would have had to been an American Indian or somebody from ancient America, if you don't want to call them an Indian, right? Our currents, the Gulf Stream, are much stronger going that way. We got more favorable winds going that way. You can easily get caught in these currents and end up, you're in Jamaica, Florida, go all the way, end up all the way, Norway, Scandinavia, the British Isles, and then back down, towards the Iberian Peninsula, and then back around. It's 4 times harder, 4 times much harder to go the other way coming from that side. Okay, remember that. So this is the stuff this guy don't write, this author right here. But we do know people were coming back and forth. Yes, we can agree to that. But we know from the most one of the most renowned historians on navigation. He's the one that stated if anybody was to cross the Atlantic, it would have been from our side first. Okay? While the Northmen themselves did probably not know that they had discovered the American continent, the scholars of Central and Southern Europe continued their learned speculations and faded lore about lands and islands of the Atlantic Ocean. Of these were Honorius of Autun and Gervasius of Tilbury. The German Dominican friar Albert of Bolstadt, or Albertus Magnus, Vincent of Bevis, and his Speculum Majus, John of Salisbury, the English Franciscan friar Roger Bacon, all authors of the same epic, admitted not only another continent, right? All these people were writing about America, but also that it was inhabited, and furthermore, that it was possible to establish communication with it. All right? Their statements greatly encouraged Christopher Columbus and his glorious undertaking, aka Sarko. So again, he knew, he read all these accounts, he studied all this stuff, guys. He knew where he was going. And he didn't call it India because he was lost, because Hindustan was not called India at that time. It was called Hindustan, before that Bharat. Puran, Bharat, Hindustan, not India. They got the name India in 19, I believe, 47 or 36, one of those. Right, 1900s is when that place was called India. Not in Columbus' time. Remember, North America is India superior. He was looking for the Grand Khan. Grand Canyon, Grand Khan. The Prester, maybe? George Reich has, in his Margarita Philosophica, preserved the same ancient traditions. A great Christian and great poet of the 13th century, to whom Americanists have not paid sufficient respect, Dante, has actually, in his Divina Commedia, discovered the American continent 2 centuries before Columbus. And again, there goes that word discover. And I just want to, again, remind you, you cannot discover a place that has people in it already. I mean, think about that. Let's be logical. How can you say, I discovered this place when there's already people there? And where people from here already had gone into Europe and discovered you guys and colonized it before anything. Suffice is to translate a few of his lines, where he intimates it as his opinion that it is more difficult to sail all along the Mediterranean Sea than to reach the New World across the Western Ocean. I and my companions were old and stiff when we arrived at these narrow straits, where Hercules marked down the limits of his journeys to warn man against going any farther, leaving me, Seville, at my right and Septa at my left. Brothers, said I, who through 100,000 perils have finally reached the West, do not refuse to find out, during the short space which has left us yet of our bodily existence, the realities of the world devoid of people that lies beyond the setting sun, right? The West, the setting sun, Amenti, the underworld, the dark place. Consider your noble extraction. You were not made to live like brutes, but to pursue virtue and knowledge. We shall simply add that these words are too clear to be a poet's prophetic dream, and must have their foundation in preserved knowledge of our Western world. A learned English traveler of the 14th century, John Mandeville, relates a quaint legend which he heard in his youth and should not be altogether overlooked here. A man, he says, had started from England to go and discover the world. He had gone so long by land and by sea that he had gone all around the earth. And it happened that after he went to Norway, a tempest carried him to an island. And when he was in that island, he well knew that it was the island where he had heard his own language spoken before. His own language, huh? Where all the mother tongues come out of. Edward J. Payne remarks here that the full circumstances of the discoveries of the Northmen were only to be heard of in the sagas of Iceland, but that the description of one fertile island which they had found had penetrated into the literary world of southern Europe. It was this island, he says, known by the name of Wineland, which the Englishman of Mandeville's legend was supposed to have reached, and which afterwards, yet already before Columbus' discoveries, was the object of the yearly researches of Bristol's and Lisbon's mariners in western waters. We might doubt, however, whether John Mandeville had not rather taken his curious story from the ideas set forth by his learned countryman, the Franciscan friar Roger Bacon. A contemporary of Mandeville was the great Cardinal de Ailly, or Petrus Aliacus. He had no idea that America was a special continent, but he seems to have been of the opinion which prevailed for years after Columbus' discovery, namely that the western continent situated where it is was a northeastern extension of Asia. We're just talking about Asia Major, the farthest east where Marco Polo went. They still haven't figured out where he went when he wrote that book that he traveled to the farthest east. He came here, guys. He came here. Why were they calling? You saw the map I showed you, right? Of Columbus' sun. He put North America, he put Asia in North America. This we are entitled to conclude from his asserting that the earth stretches forth much farther to the east than is taught by Ptolemy, and that according to physicists, the ocean which extends between the eastern coast of India and the western cliffs of Africa is not very wide, for it is well known, he adds, that it can be crossed in a few days with favorable winds, and hence it is evident that the uttermost parts of India cannot be very distant from those of Africa. The water flows from pole to pole between the coasts of both. All right, and I just want to remind you guys, the country of India today was called Hindustan and Bharat before. It just got its name in like the 1940s. It just got named India. So when all these ancient people are talking about India, what do you think they're talking about? Remember the three Indias. But there wasn't India superior. What some of the European savants of the Middle Ages had described in their scholastic prose, others had represented on inaccurate maps. Yet from both it is evident that Europe at that time was aware of the existence of a certain land situated far away in the Atlantic Ocean, not to speak of many other instances recorded by Jomard. Suffice it to notice the map of Pisigano of the year 1367, where we find the dubious Antilia. Now remember, we've gone over this. This guy literally drew an island. It was called Antilia in the Atlantic. And what happened? It turned out that that was the eastern half of North America, from the Mississippi to the Atlantic Ocean, all the way up to the Susquehanna on the top, the Susquehanna River, and in the bottom, the Gulf of Mexico, matching exactly what that part of the world looked like. Exactly. With Florida sticking out, the Mississippi, the bays going in, everything. We've shown the image, guys. Catch up. We've shown the videos. So he's letting you know, another drop here, another book letting you know the same thing. We've already concluded that Antilia, right, this dubious Antilia, which was drawn on a map in 1367, located about the center of the Atlantic waves. Another map of 1384 places the Madeiras in their rightful location, in spite of such as pretend that they were not discovered before 1419, all right? So they weren't supposedly discovered till 1490, but somebody had it in a map of 1384, although they had most probably been visited by many earlier mariners. In the library of St. Mark in Venice are two pen-drawn maps, one of Vincenzo Formaleoni and another dated 1455 with a question mark, which record the imaginary island Antilia. about the central meridian of the Atlantic Ocean. Andrea Bianco, a geographer of the same epoch, and Martin Behaim drew, within the outlines of the same supposititious island, all that was left of Plato's ancient tradition and all that had penetrated into literary Europe from the Northmen's discoveries. All right, we're just talking about Atlantis, Plato, huh? The fictitious islands, such as Man Satanaxio, with which the expanse of the Atlantic had been studied during the Middle Ages, are witnesses to the same or to still more progressive opinions. All these fictitious islands, mythological lands, and these sagas and these mythology of the ancient people of Europe, they were always talking about the Americas, guys. It seems indeed that as the epoch of Columbus' discovery drew nearer, the conceptions regarding the Western Hemisphere became bolder and more accurate. But it remains doubtful whether this development of scientific conjectures was caused by the adventurous voyages of Portuguese seamen or derived from the scanty intercourse of southern Europe with the Icelandic owners of historical manuscripts relating the deeds of their ancestors on American soil. The fact is that the following lines of a Florentine poet of the 15th century hardly fall short of the learned pleadings of Columbus himself before the commission of Salamanca. Pulci, says R.H. Clarke, has in poetic form given the world of that century an insight into the common discovery, a prophecy which, no doubt, fell under the vigilant eye of the man that fulfilled it. The poet puts the words in the mouth of the devil to refute the general belief that the world ended at the Pillars of Hercules, and that's the Straits of Gibraltar, where Spain and Morocco meet. So they used to say that was the limits of the earth, guys. There's nothing beyond that, nothing to see here. That's what they wanted people to think. But all these mythical places beyond the Pillars of Hercules, there was always talking about the Americas, or Great Ireland, right? India Superior, Asia Major, the Antilia, Brazil, High Brazil. There's so many names for it they had. Know that this theory is false, his bark, the daring. So this is what they were trying to say. Know that this theory is false, his bark, the daring mariner shall urge far o'er the western wave, a smooth and level plain, albeit the earth is fashioned like a wheel. Man was in ancient days of grosser mold, and Hercules might blush to know how far beyond the limits he had vainly set. The dewless seaboat soon shall win her way. Men shall descry another hemisphere, since to one common center all things tend. So earth by curious mystery divine, well balanced, hangs amid the starry spheres. At our antipodes are cities, states, and thronged empires, nearer divined of yore. But see the sun speeds on his western path, too glad the nations with expected light. Here in these remarkable and spirited words of the poet prophet we find settled and elucidated, with ease and grandeur of conception, the important question which afterwards perplexed and disconcerted the grave judges of Salamanca. The sphericity of the earth, the center of gravity, the antipodes, the hemispheres, continents studded with cities, states, all right, continents with cities, states, and empires are all described, and the little caravel on board which Columbus sailed and saw or explored them all was the Dulles seaboat, which made the prophesied voyage. It is probable that these lines did not escape the searching eye of Christopher Columbus. All right, again, he had access to all these documents, especially as a uh, grandnephew to Henry the Navigator. That was his granduncle. He was into that whole stuff. They had a collection of ancient maps. He met Indians in Ireland in 1470s. He knew about Atlantis and the stories of the ancient Greeks. Like he studied all this stuff. We're talking about Salvador Fernandez Sarco, aka Christopher Columbus. We know that the great discoverer was encouraged in his daring enterprise by the letters of another Florentine, namely of the learned cosmographer Paolo Toscanelli, with whom he corresponded in the year 1474. It is, however, Columbus himself, if we accept the peasants of Iceland, who in all the old world of his time was the best informed man in all that pertains to our Western Hemisphere. He had the drop. He was never lost, he's telling you right now, as evidently appears from his eloquent pleadings before the courts of Europe and the commissions of Salamanca. He had passionately studied all sacred and ancient lore regarding the Western world. He had carefully collected all the information from later Portuguese and other mariners. He was Portuguese. That's what I was just saying, grandnephew to Henry, the navigator. He had perhaps heard the positive and well authenticated statements of Icelanders in regards to the Northman discoveries of America. He knew about them going back and forth, so-called Vikings, Danes, Celts, them going to Great Ireland, yeah, in New England. We do not believe that Columbus' great achievement was the effect of divine inspiration, although God's providence may have assisted him more than his clerical friends, but we rather think that he acted upon the data of his memory, which had become a storeroom of all ancient and contemporary knowledge of our hemisphere. And again, Columbus knew. He knew where he was going. He got funded, sponsored. He knew they was there. He wasn't going to go try to risk it. He knew it was over here. He was not lost. That's what they told you in school. Same people told you you came out of apes from Africa. Same people. That's what they told you in school. And you can't discover a place that already had people. Come on, let's be logical. The immortal discoverer thus closes a long yet incomplete series of learned Europeans who kept alive, though faint it grew, the flame of knowledge of the Western world. If it be true that science is progressing, our successors may one day enjoy the great satisfaction of learning what was known of America in such lands as China, Tartary, and Siberia, what was recorded of our ancient history upon the richly carved slabs of Palenque, Chichen Itza, and of other ruined cities of Central America. But compelled as we are to leave it to later students to reveal what was further known of our continent among foreign nations, we may cause pleasure to our readers by gathering from his historical records or from historical records the knowledge which our aborigines also had acquired of transmarine countries, ancient Americas, navigating the world, navigating the world. All right, that's the end of this chapter, guys. The next chapter, let me just show you Discoveries of Europe by American Natives. Just like the other book, written by Jack Forbes, a more modern take on it. That this, you know, the Native Americans who discovered Europe, right, or settled Europe, right. Now let me see if I can show you before we go the Antilla, the map I'm talking about. Okay, Antilia, Atlantis, Atlantis. One second, guys. We live. We live. We are live. Civilization, inheritance. Now remember the other book we're reading, Researches into the Lost History of America. We're almost done with that book. I mean, correlating so much with this. We also read Mysteries of Ancient South America. I mean, how many books we've read, guys? Like so many. Atlantis, the Antediluvian World by Ignatius Donnelly, all telling us the same thing, right? Hold on, let's find this. Antilia. Where is my image? I showed it in the video Greater Ireland. Okay, this is the video right here. Let me just open this real quick. 1 second. One second. Okay. So this is the map right here we were talking about. So this is literally what they were saying on a map from 1386, the island of Antilia, which is literally the eastern half of North America. So you see the Mississippi River on the left, Ohio River, the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico on the bottom, Susquehanna River with all the bays and everything. Florida sticking out, a little bit of Texas, right? That's what they were talking about. Atlantis, dwelling place of the gods, of the gods, real people. All these mythological gods of Europe and Africa and Asia, as we've been seeing, and the zodiacal maps showing you a geography of America, showing you a real people, the Titans, the Oceanides, Kronos, Uranus, all that linking you to ancient America. All right, so check out this video, Atlantis, dwelling place of the gods, dwelling place of the gods. Let me see how you spell this. Antilia, Antilia, that's what I had. Antilia. Not sure why the image ain't coming up, but this is the image I got here. Black hair. We ain't talking about just black hair. Yeah, but we're gonna leave it there because I also want to show the cover again because I was kind of zoomed out. Hold on, guys. In case you're wondering if you got here late, what book we've been reading, we just read chapter 6 of this awesome book we're getting into. Well, again, that's already a couple chapters. We're in chapter 6. We're gonna go to chapter 7 next on the next reading, and we got 2 volumes of this book. That's the best part about it. We got 2 volumes to go through. And again, this was the history of America before Columbus, according to documents and approved authors. Okay? And approved authors by P. de Roe, Volume 1 from 1900. Okay, so this was 1900. Volume 1, American Aborigines. You guys see that? Member of the Archaeological Club of the Land Vast Maze. All right, so not just anybody. And also, what I like about this book is he sources a lot of scholarly sources, primary sources. All right, we're not just talking about people making up things or writing books like in modern times, which a lot of people just write books. All right. Did you hear any of these people from all these old books talking about any so-called the white advanced civil, the white this, white that, all these modern books? They just try to make everything so-called white, right? Actually, I'm sorry, I wasn't showing it. Here you go. History of America before Columbus, according to documents and approved authors, by P. de Roe from 1900, Volume 1. So we got 2 volumes of this that we got to get through. We're just getting started on Volume 1. All right. The more I learn about America, the more I want to leave. What you waiting for, man? What you waiting for, man? Leave. Leave, man. Yeah, don't. I mean, I guess you can find out DJ Sepe why he said that, but I wouldn't entertain that. I wouldn't entertain that at all. Let me see here a second. 1 second. Okay. We've gone over so many regarding so-called Atlantis. This is just one of the videos. In America was recovered ancient Egypt and the Promised Land. Remember, we got that from a Masonic book. Ancient Egyptian maize, America, Atlantis, Egypt, first civilization. Yeah, look at that. Atlantis. Atlantis in America, navigators of the ancient world. The Greeks knew about America, the farthest India, Western Ethiopians. This is a great video if you don't know what I'm talking about the three Indias, the Western Ethiopians, and other references, other authors who are telling you that these ancient Greeks knew about America. I mean, this is from other books, not even, totally different info, saying the same thing. Okay, catch up on the videos. Love it or leave it. Love it or leave it. Go ahead, run away. That's an image of Atlantis, but it was flipped, and when they flipped it, it looked just like South America. Literally, looked just like South America. Love it or leave it. Yeah, the Atlanto-Ethiopian pre-Egyptians of America. Oh, and that's the another great book, Shadow of Atlantis, which we read completely, guys. I know you guys like that book. There's a whole series. I think we read it all. I'm gonna double check and make sure we finish it if we haven't, but I think we did finish it completely. Shadow of Atlantis. So, yeah, why you worried about the education system? That's obvious, and that's all over the world. Anywhere you go, they teach false history. That's not just in so-called America. So if that's your only reason to leave it, then well, that's a bad reason, man. That's a really bad reason. This is stuff they found in South America, Atlantis civilization and inheritance from America. We civilized the world. We civilized the world. Of course, there's so much proof of contact. That's what we've been showing you. That's what we've been showing you. Etruscans, Atlanteans, shadow of Atlantis. Where's the Etruscans from? The lost histories of America, Atlantis, the Western Ethiopians and pre-Egyptians are Atlanteans. That's from chapter 1 of Researches into the Lost History of America. That was a great chapter, actually. Chapter 1. Check it out. If you're new to the channel, try to catch up, guys. I have playlists, created so you guys, make it easier for you. If not, just go all the way back and work your way up. It's a great journey if you like history, if you like true history. It's a great journey. America, Atlantis, the Maya, Naga, colonizers of the old world. We went both directions. We went both directions. Both directions. I'm just showing you some of the covers of some of the videos I got on this. Ancient South America is Mysteries and Ruins, Shadow of Atlantis, chapter 13. So you see, we read a lot of that book. I think we did read it completely. It's just a matter of time, but you got to understand that not everybody's interested in history. Some people just like sports. Some people more interested in Trump and Kamala, the puppets, the APAC puppets. Some people more interested in who's the best rapper out there, or making that money. It's all about that money back, yo. I gotta make that money, yo. Why do I care about any of this? How's this gonna help me, Kurimeo? What's the point of all this, Kurimeo? So the ones who need to learn it will learn it. We don't need everybody to. We just need a few leaders out there, and we can make a change. What I'm trying to say is stop worrying about the negative things. Be the change you want to see. Be the change you want to see. Spread the info. Teach. Each one teach one. And don't focus on the ones who don't want to learn. There's a lot of people who do want to learn that have no idea about this. You got to know how to discern. You can't force people. Part 9, Research into the Lost History of America. Phoenicians, Egyptian, and Greek deities, origins in Atlantis, aka America. And that's a great book, guys. Like, we're almost done with this book too. We read a chapter yesterday of that, Phoenicians from Atlantis Island, America. This is what I was saying in the beginning. What Phoenicians? So-called Phoenicians. We're talking about seafarers with their Paleo-Hebrew. Yeah. Shadow of Atlantis, chapter 7. We're just talking about Phoenician inscriptions in Brazil. We're just talking about the Carib seafarers, Carians. The Carians just showed up out of nowhere in Asia. They just showed up out of nowhere. They can't explain where they originated. All these ancient people, they have no origin stories. They just tell us, oh, we don't know. They just popped out of nowhere into Asia, in Africa, and Europe. You know? Yeah, I'm glad you guys like these the books we've been reading and all these mysteries of ancient South America. Look at that. Chapter 6, signposts of the Atlanteans. Signposts of the Atlanteans. In parentheses, right? Atlantis, the antediluvian world. We got a lot of drop on that. Got a lot of drop on that. Now, point number 6, that the gods and goddesses of the ancient Greeks, the Phoenicians, the Hindus, and the Scandinavians were simply the kings, queens, and heroes of Atlantis. It's just the same story being retold, and the acts attributed to them in mythology are confused recollections of real historical events. Come on now. Haven't we been this is from a video I did years ago. Years ago. We gotta get back into this book. We will. But we've read most of it already in different videos and old videos. But look how it all complements what we're learning even today, even 8 years later. You're just getting more and more drop, accumulate. You know? Atlantis. Look at this. Lake Atitlan in Guatemala, right? So just add tis to the end of that, like the Greek suffix, right? So you get at Lake Atitlantis, Atitlantis. And there was an Atlan city in Panama too. And there's many Atitlans all over America. Just add the TIS, which is the Greek suffix, and you get Atitlantis. Remember, ATL is a Nahuatl word of dialect. It's an American word, right? Or how do you say that? Prefix? How do you say that? 3 letters, right? This is from Francis Bacon, if you don't know. This is from Francis Bacon's book. And he said, how the great Atlantis, which we call America, how the great Atlantis, which we call America, abounded once in tall ships, how the people of Peru through the South Sea and those of Mexico through the Atlantic to the Mediterranean Sea did both in 10 years' space make 2 great expeditions upon Ben Salem, but by the valor of the Altabang, king thereof, a wife and great warrior who cut off their land forces from their ships and entailed both their natives and camps with greater force by sea and land, were repulsed and disniffed by him when they were at his mercy. So Francis Bacon, in his book New Atlantis, he letting you know, which we call America, Atlantis, which we call America. This is look at this. This is a Greek version. Atlantis Insula, or the island of Atlantis. This is South America, right? By Nicolaus Samson. Remember, we read this in the other parts. All these maps, all these people portraying America as Atlantis. And it even says autochthon. Autochthon. The indigenous original people. Autochthon. The autochtons were from South America. The Greek autochtons in their mythology. The shadow of Atlantis. All right. We're going to end it there. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope you guys like this chapter. You know, it's late in the day, so I'll let you go get some rest. A lot of you are probably in the East Coast. You're an hour ahead. But a lot of my people that follow me are in California, so they still got some time. It's still a little early for them. But I appreciate you guys sticking around to the end. And this is just one topic. We just, you know, this is just Atlantis, one topic. I mean, we've gone over so many things proving America's the true old world without having to use Atlantis, as the topic. If you're new to my channel, and I'm talking to you, it was said, if I've never really seen your name, you know, try to make the time to catch up. It might change your mind about moving away. You guys see how great this place is, how great the people are, how great the history is here. Don't worry about what they teach in school. The only certain thing in life is change. Change is coming. And we are going to make America great. I'm not talking about Trump, how Trump is using it. We are going to make America great again. Yeah, don't worry about that, man. Don't worry about that, man. Appreciate you guys taking the time again to hear me read one more time. We're gonna get back into this book again, probably maybe Friday or maybe Saturday or Sunday, one of those days. We'll see. I get the next chapter. Looks really interesting. Talking about Americans discovering Europe, huh? Settling Europe, huh? After midnight in Jamaica, huh? Okay. Yeah, so you're an hour ahead. So in Costa Rica is 11:30 right now. So we're an hour behind. We're in Central Time right now, I think. Yeah. Because the hour changed. We were a mountain. Our time doesn't change. Our time doesn't change. It always stays the same. No coincidence you're here. That's what I'm talking about, Dev. I literally wrote that on my YouTube channel. A long time when I created my channel, I said there is no coincidence that you're here. That something brought you here. All right. So just focus on the positive, man, and be the change you want to see. Be the change you want to see. I'm going to quote Wayne Dyer too, The Power of Intention. He says, change the way you see things, and the things you see will change. Wow, okay? Breathe. Just breathe, man. Give thanks. Give thanks, yo, to the Great Spirit, the Most High, man. It's a wonderful time to be alive. Dev D knows it. It's a wonderful time to be alive. I appreciate everybody that was here in the live chat. If you saw this later on, don't worry. I appreciate you too for taking the time to watch this video all the way to the end. Appreciate you guys. Hey, I was playing soccer earlier, if you guys missed it, but it's a members only video now. I did go public first, and then I switched it to members only. It's kind of private, I showed where I went to play. If you want to support me that way, you can become a channel member and see exclusive private videos, little vlogs I do. Or you can go to my Patreon page where I share exclusive videos and lots of books. All these books you see here, I share them on my Patreon in case you don't know how to find them online or don't have access to them. All right. And a lot of other cool stuff there. And there is a public chat. There's a lot of cool interaction there on my Patreon, more personal. Appreciate all my patrons, by the way. I love y'all. Thank you for holding me up, because YouTube does make it hard. YouTube be playing with that. All right. And shout out to all the moderators that were here. Appreciate you guys. All my longtime followers. Appreciate you guys, May the Most High bless all of you guys. Allah bless all of you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Wow. Wow. Yeah, let's get it. Wow.